shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll do my best to not joke about what day it is because we all know it's Thursday. Oh, sorry, it's Tuesday. Anyways, some day in some month in some year that we probably won't record on our calendar at all. But we're going to invite you to be a part of our discussion as we talk about the 2020 Economic Forum. The CEO from the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Will Pano, will be our guest. And there's a gentleman that we want you to tune into our YouTube channel to look at. And you look at him, you go, he looks mighty familiar. Last time I saw him was probably on the cover of GQ. Well, we'll tell you about it when we come back. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks so much for joining us. And thank you too for at least allowing me. I'm working on my next career. And my father always told me I should be on stage. Back then there was a stage with a horse attached to it. And when I was leaving, he said, see, you should be on stage. Quickly run, catch that one. 8949.
So also a stage that didn't have any cameras, right?
Ooh. Now you recognize the voice? Well, he joins us today in his capacity as the Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Shamari Scott, with deference to the CEO. Let me say a special good afternoon to you, man. How are you?
I'm good. How have you been?
Hey, look at me, man. I mean, tall, dark, and handsome.
I tell you don't look a day older. Pandemic treated you well.
Respiration. We sturdy people, man.
Age well. I can see that.
We don't age at all. We're ageless.
That's why you shave the hair so that nobody can tell the progression, right?
You know.
And you look good on radio too.
I keep saying that, but they keep putting these cameras.
That's what I'm saying. Now we can actually see what you do.
All my secrets are out, man.
But I noticed how Susan angled the camera so that none of them actually hit you, right? So
no, they're all on you. Oh, so listen. As listeners are joined, your secrets are out. That's one of the reasons why we invite good-looking people into the studio. So we have kind of like the background and the imagery. That's what you are, man. The other's here for the beans.
Gosh, come on.
No, hey, listen, if there's ever a fellow that I not only admire, I mean, even though he's, what is it, 30 years younger than me now, I think it is?
No, I'm not catching you. I'm stuck on 30. I had my I've lost count. My 12th annual 30th.
Yeah,
just in March. Yeah.
No, it's amazing, man. I mean, I'm proud of you. Not just when you were attempting to play sports, but well, I should be here because somebody may call somebody and say, "Listen, now, I like Shamari, so stop beating up on him." But in jest, I think that's part of why when we look at the economic impact of stuff, and when we see how this year in particular has materialized, and everybody. Even the U.S. presidential candidates are attempting to make jokes. It's the worst thing. You think that Johnny Carson could find anybody that's to put on the Tonight Show, but he's really majority. You say, who's Johnny Carson? He's from East End. Not the guy.
That's Johnny Ebanks. No.
Oh man! But over the years, you've had some wonderful lineup, and we've seen almost prescient things coming out of the presenters. This year, no different, even though most of this. So as I maybe speak to you first, after Shamar, let me ask you, two things initially. Putting together these conferences, what would seem obvious as to why we would do it. But this year, logistically and moving forward with it, must have been a thought, you know what, guys, let's just erase this year from our birthdays, from our resumes. Let's just pretend it hit reset because there's obviously an uninstall button somewhere. Why go ahead with it? Is it more important than ever?
Absolutely. Again, I think, first off, thank you for inviting us to be on. I think the big thing now is trying to infuse some optimism into the discussion. There's some negativity with the economy. Several people have to face the reality that some people are really hurting out there, and I think it's almost been likened like a Category 5 hurricane that is a financial hurricane that didn't destroy any buildings, but swept away profits, it swept away businesses, and certainly swept away a lot of jobs and livelihoods. And so the discussion has to be in how we rebuild this economy and make it better than what it was before. And that's what we've kind of focused on in this, the theme for this economic forum. And because I'm a big believer in optimism, there will always be crises in the world, but I like to hang out with optimistic people and say, there is a silver lining to every crisis. And what would that be? And as I say to some people, back in January and February, we were moaning and groaning about growth. We were complaining about driving in bumper-to-bumper traffic. We were complaining about so many different things. It was all good stuff because the economy was growing, right? It was, we had jobs. But now we're put a pause on it. So now we can address those pain points and really think about when we reopen, what do we really look like and what do we want to become in terms of an economic model?
Shamari, that's the thing. I since I have it performed tonight, it's a 2-drink minimum. My opening song will be "Hey Jude." Take a sad song and make it better, right? So you'll join me in that. When I listen to Will talk about the silver lining and every cloud, the notion, what we told him, be careful what you pray for, you might actually get it. Oh, it's too much traffic congestion. Oh, I got to go to work every day. All these things. But just like, as I say, every cloud has a silver lining. Thankfully, every government has an election to face. That's your... Can't beat them too much today, but all jokes aside for the second. When we look at where we are now and recognizing that, as Will was sharing, it's not just the economic impact, it's the social impact. It's not just the loss of jobs and the potential loss of jobs and potential closure of businesses. It's the impact on relationships, not just those who are now confined to having to remain in one space for an extended period of time, but the notion that physical connection that you have. All of this, some wouldn't appreciate. There is an economic impact in it. As we look at this year, as we look at this forum, and those who may think, well, this is just about business people looking at business and how to make more business, but it's more than that.
No, definitely. And I think you both set it up perfectly. So the reason I'm here today is because I'm also moderating one of the sessions. So I was asked to be a panelist, but then I got voluntold. I'm looking at the person, I'm pointing to the person, that I would then moderate the session. So I said, oh, okay. So I'm moderating a session by Minister Hugh. So he's actually presenting Cayman 2.0 and what will drive the economy in the future. And everybody probably would have heard that he had put together a group that's called SEAC, the Strategic Economic Advisory Council, which represented tourism, retail, development, innovation, technology, social services, and healthcare. And I'm missing one that I can't recall. Infrastructure.
Well, I was going to say political reform.
And the session that I'm moderating, first Minister Hugh will give a presentation about the different points that came out and action items and what's the plan in regards to 2.0 based on that SEAC group that got together with those different networks that brought forth ideas of how we could do things differently. And on that panel is going to be Mr. Charles Kirkconnell, CEO of Cayman Enterprise City, Mike Ministo, partner at Ernst & Young, Matthew White, Managing Director at NCB, who also sits on the SEAC as one of the main 4 private sector council members for that area. And what I'm sure is going to come out of it, because Mike Monesto in his group, which had to do with technology, was speaking about smart cities, right? And where we need to go in the future, however, the bedrock in order to even get there. And just because Will was one speaking about all of the issues we had before, and now you, Dwayne, we're talking about where do we go from here, and the fact that this isn't just about, business people coming together. When you actually understand the concept of smart cities and the fact that with cameras, with sensors and the such, you look at a country like Singapore, who has really done it well, where from a traffic perspective, because the traffic lights have sensors, they can properly control the actual traffic flow. You, with your app, can see where parking spots are available and not available. We all know when you're coming into Central Georgetown in any given time, one of the pain points is trying to find that parking space. From a garbage collection perspective, you have smart garbage cans that you don't have your same schedule, and half of the garbage collector bins are half full and the others are overflowing. You actually know when and where to pick up, which also shows efficiency in that regard. And the list actually goes on in regards to all of the things that you can help to properly manage the population that you have. Just knowing that urbanization is continuing to grow and the majority of people are coming into city centers across the world using technology will help you to better manage and also give you efficiencies. And from this, it can also bore new industries, and that's where I think Cayman can be top of the world again. So obviously we had financial services, we had tourism, development, and real estate started to come up as another pillar as well. But when you look to the future, are we going to think that all we can do is enhance what we already have? And if our forefathers thought like that, we probably wouldn't have financial services here. So what's the next frontier that we can build on in order to continue the success of the Cayman Islands? And coming out of that session, I'm sure there are three things you're going to hear. It's going to have to do with the legislation that needs to be changed in order to enable these different processes to happen. And after we go to Will, I'll come back and talk about, even from a healthcare perspective, which obviously I'm there now, how that's of vital importance to lay the bedrock. Technology will always be there across, no matter which industry you're looking at. The only way to move forward is with technology. And if you're not adapting, it's like a shark. You don't keep moving, then the shark's going to die. And the third has to do with education and training, which we've been hearing about, obviously over many, 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 many years. But if we continue to go on this path of being first in class, if we don't at some point in time fix that and ensure that we as the Caymanian population partake in the new success, which will continue to be the Cayman Islands, then why are we doing it? So I say all of that to say, and once again, you have to shut me up.
No, not at all.
I say all that to say that I'm excited about that panel discussion, just based on what I think will be presented, and then definitely the panel members we have in order to discuss how Cayman 2.0 will move forward, what it looks like, what are the building blocks. And that's just an example of the rich type of information that's going to be given at that panel discussion. And that's just one of like eight to 10 different panel discussions. That the funny thing is, Will did such a great job putting together these panelists as well as these speakers, looking at the range of topics and the ministers and the panelists. This probably, I would say, Will, is one of the best conferences I've seen on paper since I've been around conferences in Cayman. And on top of that, the fact that we're now in a SARS-CoV-2 world, that we've moved this online digitally, even though now we're still allowed to meet in certain numbers, once again shows how the Chamber of Commerce is also meeting the challenge of what may become the new normal, or at least an option in order to make sure that more people can gain access. So,
Gents, when we come back from the break, share more, because as you know, I was looking at the conference, and Shamari, if he doesn't mind a compliment, not only eloquent, but he puts things in a peanut perspective that you can visualize, and that's helpful. All of these panelists are people we know. We know the companies, the organizations that they're involved with, this business or whether it's social. So they're right here, and I think that should allow us to, at the very least, once again, reflect on the resources that we have here. We don't always have to cast a net, in another pond. We can fish from our back, our back porch, as it were. When we come back, let's talk more about the forum. Maybe I'll ask a couple of questions, attempt another joke or two. I've got to work on my material for tonight, All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
It's the Tempur-Pedic and Sealy Summer of Sleep mattress sale. On now at Brand Source Home Gallery. Tempur Adapt Hybrid Queen mattress now just $19.99. Save $500 on all Tempur-Breeze mattresses. Save $200 on all Sealy Hybrid mattresses. Check out Brand Source Home Gallery's wide selection of Tempur-Pedic and Sealy mattresses and enjoy savings during the Summer of Sleep sale. On now at Brand Source Home Gallery. Visit us at 209 Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Call 623-5000 for more information.
Sports fans, tune in to Radio Cayman's Sports Extra show.
Hi, I'm Bruce Lee Colson.
Sports Extra.
This and every Tuesday night, right here on Radio Cayman, 89.9 and 93.9, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Sports Extra, from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. Sports Extra.
Proudly brought to you by King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Proudly sponsored by High Fashion and Design Studio, truly your one-stop fashion studio, located in Cayman Trade Center, 199 Eastern Avenue. Call 945-4415.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM from 7:30 to 9 a.m. for Cayman's new Straight Talk morning show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record. Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And I'm glad for the opportunity to speak both to Mr. Wilpeno as the CEO of Chamber of Commerce, and Shamari, if you'd allow, speak to you, Shamari Scott, in the capacity not just as the VP of the Chamber, not just as one of the moderators of the panel, but as someone who in our society, whether in early days we're playing sports somewhat competitively on a league so that we can enjoy it, or we're volunteering in some capacity to help to build the capacity in our society. It's an adage that I think we shouldn't forget. Its source. To whom much is given, much is required, and that's important here. Whether you can easily transfer money from one account to the next to assist in some sort of effort that is beneficial, or whether you can come up and roll up your sleeves and say, hey, we're planting trees. I have some gloves. What can I do? Everybody can do something, almost continually. And Will, as I wanted to maybe ask about some of the other comments that Shamari shared, tell us more about the conference. Is it too late to sign up and be a part of it? How do we be a part of it? When is it taking place? I mean, pretend I didn't know much about it.
Okay. It takes place on Friday, and it's a full-day event from 8:30 to 5. We're asking people who want to participate and register by tomorrow, because it's a virtual conference. There are some things that we have to put in place to make sure everybody has the best experience possible, and also for them to get familiar with the platform that we're using. Most people now have, in one way or the other, particularly if you work in an office, you've probably engaged in one of those virtual platforms already. And so this is another platform which is easy to use. So it only costs $75 for the full day, or $50 for half day for chamber members. And for our future members who want to join us ultimately, it's a little bit more, which is $100 for the day, or $75. But again, I think it's well worth you participating. And like Shamari clearly said, we really put a lot of thought into this conference because we wanted to set a tone for discussions. As we know, we're, I think, less than a year now to the next election. So, some of these topics that we've raised here will be topics that will be election discussions, right? And we have to start thinking about what a smart country would look like. It's funny because I think back, the Future of Cayman initiative that we did in 2010, believe it or not, 10 years ago, we actually talked about Smart Cayman with IBM as being the prototype, and we brought speakers in and the same type of discussion. Now I think we've gone a long way, but there's still more to do. And like I said, that silver lining is what we need to look at. This is an opportunity for us all, and through these discussions at the forum, to really plan what type of society we really want to live in certain areas. That's how we have a panel discussion just on tourism. Because again, we were talking about building a cruise ship berthing facility. Massive discussion about that topic. Now here we are, no cruise ships, meaning passengers, and now it's kind of odd, isn't it? We've always used to growth, and we're used to seeing people in Georgetown, and now we don't. And then realizing that the economic impact of that alone affects a lot of the people, local people, in terms of jobs, businesses, and everything. So the question is, when that comes back, what will it look like? Is it like there's an article in today's paper about, we're resilient, we're going to come back stronger than ever. That's the cruise industry. Great. But remember, the jurisdictions where they go have to evaluate, are they that hungry where they're just going to allow that to happen again, which is the type of environment that lots of tourists, or are the jurisdictions, including Cayman, and again, a discussion, how are we going to welcome them back, under what conditions? Already one of the things was that 13 ships of the smaller classes have been unloaded by the cruise lines. One cruise company has sold 13 smaller ships already because of liquidity issues, right? So a question is, again, when we have these discussions about these panel, what will that industry look like? And it's just one of the discussions that we're going to have.
As I listen to you, I recognize immediately how there was a time when we were, as a people, exercising some level of vision and foresight and insight. Think back to the Vision 2008 initiative. Think back to the mid-90s, the strategic plan for healthcare. Think back to the government of the early 90s when they were considering limiting the number of cruise ships in port to reduce the number of passengers at a time in order to hopefully not just manage the experience and everything else, but like the cruise ships who may be considering, we have less people at a time to carrying capacity over, Sandbar, for instance, and other attractions. This is an opportune time for us as leaders in all facets to look very, very deliberately at what is it that we have. If I can then ask, you referenced the issue of it potentially being political topics within how do we get to a point where these things, these forums, join on the experience and expertise that we have? Getting that information without it becoming something that is divisive as political candidates seize the opportunity to say, oh, this was shared, but instead use it as, you reference Singapore. Hey, what is it we need to do as a country to make a collective impact in a decade or in 5 decades? We seem to be divided sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's par for the course, especially when you're coming into the political season. But at the end of the day, you need to have the discussions. You need to get the information. And even when we were looking at, when I started to study about smart cities, I say study, right? When I started to read up on smart cities, I noticed that the cities that are doing it well, and Singapore wants to be the first smart nation or smart country. But when you look at London, San Francisco, Barcelona, I noticed that they started implementing the small components, or at least the bedrock, as far back, it's not that far back, as 2013.
That far
right?
back?
So 2013, 2014, they started to put in the bedrock and build upon it to reach to the point where now in 2020, in Singapore, they can talk about the fact that when somebody's dropping garbage out of a window of a building, they'll know where it is to go find the person. They'll be able to tell when somebody's smoking in a non-smoking area to be able to make sure that that's also stopped, just in order to manage, especially based on pollution and as such, to get the best outcomes possible. So I want to say that these are good forums for us to have the conversations, for us to understand, but all of the hard work has to be done in the background in order to make it happen. I was just giving an example previously in regards to the age we're in and how we can build on it. We've been talking about telemedicine from a healthcare perspective for maybe a decade, if not more. And it took a pandemic for us to really jump in and start to do it. And when you actually peel back the layers, you found out it was something as simple as the rules and legislation. One didn't allow for telemedicine to be charged, and there weren't the codes there that were activated from an insurance company perspective for physicians to be able to charge for their time. Now, at the end of the day, a physician that gives you an hour, that's valuable time. Whether you're sitting right in front of him or her, or you're at home where you can have the teleconsult, it's still an hour of their time. So now that we're able to have the codes, which we were very quickly, the insurance companies, I must give them much credit, worked very quickly to allow for telehealth and telemedicine to actually occur in the teleconsult space. However, when you look at those codes, and I can't remember the exact percentage, it's like 25% of what an actual consultation is. So those physicians that are GPs, that the majority of what they do would be consultations. When we now turn back to when I can see people in person, am I going to see persons in front of me, knowing that that's my going rate, or am I actually going to do what's more efficient and do the teleconsults when I can, but I'm not actually going to get paid my going rate in order to make sure I can pay for the lights and the such. So it's something simple like that that needs to happen, that then you build on it. And when you look at our network in regards to our ICT networks here, if you want to go the next level whereby you're monitoring diabetes, you have to have the proper bandwidth, you have to have the proper technology in place so that patients can monitor and consistently have it monitoring and feeding back into a system where physicians can then actually manage, let's say, 30 or 40 patients at a time versus one. Half of the medical fraternity are nurses, and as of 2 years ago, there was a 9 million person shortage when it came to nurses. We're getting more and more persons in the baby boomer demographic that are getting older that are going to need nursing care. You're not going to get 9 million nurses over a year or two, and that's just going to keep growing exponentially. How do you deal with people in an efficient manner in order to get the outcomes that you want? And technology is the answer. But if we don't have the actual legislation in place in order to allow you to build on it, and if we don't actually have the framework and infrastructure in place, then we're just talking about it.
And as I listen to you, recognizing that it's not just the idea of, let's take the notion of smart cities and putting in the fiber optics and the infrastructure, but then the supporting legislation to charge, but to protect the person's data, the privacy, and the like.
Correct.
So when I say to people, it's not just about economics. There's a social implication. There's the political will, but there's also the buy-in. What they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? And when we come back, as we conclude our discussion, could we ask maybe a quick preview of some of the other topics? I think, Shamari, your topic is significant. And I say this not of your topic only, but perhaps others would hear and understand that as we go forward, the Cayman of the 2.0, whether we draw on our experiences of past, that we don't be driven only by the financial, that we consider the economics, which includes the social.
Correct.
And look beyond the notion that there are going to be some, not to pick on them, but just make it easy, because there are identifiable developers who may say, well, hey, let's have buildings that are 1 million feet high because we can engineer it. We want to build this edifice. We want to capitalize on the limited land space. But what is that impact for the social fabric and the like? And as they manipulate and maneuver the landscape, is it something that is going to be beneficial today, but short term, 50 years from now? Because short term isn't, one election. It's minimum, perhaps 50 years. What are we going to do for centuries going forward? Gents, I enjoy the company. Anything longer with you guys, and people might think this is a political roundtable discussion, but, like Sir Arthur, we can probably do something. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Hey, hun, what you doing?
Putting things away in the shed since it's hurricane season. Preparing for the better.
Don't you mean preparing for the worst?
No, for the better. Since we have Brit-K Insurance, we're fully covered against hurricanes. Plus, they have response teams ready to help us file a claim faster. If I were preparing for the worst, I'd watch football all day.
Still don't get it.
Isn't there a match on?
Oh, really?
Let Brit-K prepare you for the better this hurricane season. Call 949-8699 or visit britk.ky.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks again for joining us. And honestly, thanks to all of our guests who spend some of their lunchtime with us. To Mr. Will Pino, the CEO of the Chamber, and Mr. Shamari Scott, the VP, for sharing with us and extending the invitation to be a part of the Economic Forum 2020. It's a virtual sort of discussion. I had to ask, though, Mr. Pino, usually at these conferences, we come away with, nice goodie bags. Is it going to be a virtual bag this year? I mean, we're going to...
Well, there'll be a kind of little sponsor room if you want to understand a little bit more about the sponsors that we have.
No, we're going to be a lot slimmer because there's going to be virtual cocktails and virtual hors d'oeuvres.
That's what I was thinking.
Although I can't control people's menus, right, while they're watching a conference. So it's like a movie, how many bags of popcorn can you go through?
Honestly, right, this is one of the things I thought was so wonderful about this opportunity, that you can engage with so many people, again, recognizing that we have a good infrastructure, but it could be so much better. But it's not just us. We think in some company and some industrialized nation, they should have that, and you realize, there's a question with bandwidth. Ms. Norma reminds me, once the minute you get into video, there's a lot more stuff you need in order to carry that image. But you're sitting there and you're watching the presentation, and like you say, it's a movie. You engage, you can type in, you can do your stuff. That's right. You don't have to. I mean, I didn't have to do my hair that often. It was pretty easy.
And Will, I think that was a good point that we missed. Persons who are watching can also send in questions.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a chat feature. It's a question and answer session.
All right.
And every moderator will be able to see the questions that come through. We want it to be interactive. We don't want it just to be just people speaking at us. So I'll just go through the agenda so you kind of get a sense as to the forum itself. So obviously the president of the chamber is Woody Foster, so he'll welcome everyone. We'll talk a little bit about the government's economic stimulus plan. So the minister released an economic stimulus plan, and I don't think anyone has done an in-depth analysis of that plan yet. So the Chamber Council has decided to do that, and they've kind of come up with a draft report, which they're reviewing now. And so some of the highlights of that draft report will probably come through with President Foster's address. And then we turn it over to Honorable Roy McTaggart, who's the Minister of Finance and Economic Development. Really delighted that we've been working with his ministry for 3 years now. The idea was born. We had discussions with him, and he's always supported the forum from the time that we've done it. As you rightly pointed out, we have a lot of local talent. The forum always focuses on local talent and our opinions on our topics. Yeah. Then we go, Mr. Foster will have a conversation with Minister McTaggart as a kind of a chat, talk about issues. Then we turn it over to Cayman 2.0, what will drive the economy in the future. Again, it'll be moderated by Shamari. And then that will be a more in-depth look at the SEAC report, one of those reports that came out about what will drive the future economy. Then we turn it over to a presentation by DART, and Jackie Doak is going to moderate a discussion on preparing for the new normal international travel during COVID-19. What's really, really nice about that panel discussion is that we're going to have some of the technology aspects of addressing the return of our visitors with the biomedical button, I think it's called. Is that right? Bio button?
I call it something else, but anyway.
And then Dr. Lee will be there as well as President of Global Health Solutions from Aon, talking, and she'll moderate that discussion. Another area of the economy is diversification. So we really delved into the whole issue of the green economy, what that will look like. And James Whitaker has agreed to moderate that session and give us this presentation himself. So the green economy, keep creating clean jobs for a sustainable future. Then after the lunch break, we come back and we have Honorable Moses Kekernel going to give us the road back to 500,000 air arrivals. He's going to do a presentation about that. And then we have the Director of Tourism, Mark Langevin, and Teresa Broderick on the panel discussion. I'll be moderating that panel. Then we turn it over to Financial Services and the Honorable Tara Rivers. We wanted to have that panel discussion talk about something that we always seem to be addressing something that somebody wants us to do. But what do we want to do in creating that industry further? What are the opportunities for growth? And that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on what are the areas for growth in the financial services sector, which again is an important pillar. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why Cayman is continuing to be surviving the pandemic, unlike other Caribbean islands, which really tourism is their main item. And then after the discussion on that, which is a great panel as well, we're going to have our keynote speaker, who's Marla Dukharan. She's the Caribbean economist. And she actually was delighted when I approached her about this, because she holds out Cayman as one of the shining stars in the Caribbean. And she's going to talk about what the other Caribbean islands are facing in terms of the pandemic, and also evaluate how she thinks Cayman is positioned. So it'll give us kind of a perspective as to whether we're doing a decent job, what's her view. And I think, and overall, it's a great agenda. And I just hope that people go to our website, caymanchamber.ky, and register. Again, registration closes tomorrow.
Yeah. It'd be interesting, I mean, not just because she's an economist, but some of her writings, utterances recently, so that we can borrow a way, or let's look into, because we have a good rating, because interest rates are low, we're seemingly from a financial statement well positioned. Maybe we can borrow a couple of $1 billion and, recover. Is that the way forward? Will that be part of her discussion and presentation? Will the questions and answers come in? So these are things that we can look at, and I'm excited.
And we'll have our local economist, Paul Biles, will also be on that panel discussion, as well as Connor O'Day as a past president of the chamber. And also Mike Gibbs, our president-elect, will be moderating that discussion. And that's an important discussion because I'm from the old school where I don't like to borrow too much. But again, I'm not an economist, so they'll talk about the macroeconomic impact of borrowing and savings and all that stuff.
Sometimes you wonder about the New Deal. Was it that long ago? Gents, thank you so much for sharing some time, for making people appreciate that economics is not just about finance, and there's a social implication. Their job loss and job creation is about real people. So hopefully there'll be a great registration, resounding success for another conference, and maybe afterwards you can find some time in the schedule. We can come back, give us a little synopsis of each one, some salient points. The invitation will be there if you can. Be happy to bring Shamari along. I mean, he makes good, content. So I thank you.
I will come just to. I know we're going to get you back next.
No. You keep saying that. Listen, just because you're taller and more handsome. Listen.
I'll beat you at basketball and football too.
Yeah, but so it go. All right, Mr. Pano. All jokes aside, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And Shamari, enjoy your afternoon. Yeah. So listeners are going to pause and take a break, but when we come back from the news headlines, join us for a discussion that I think is exceptional. It was timely when it's dear to me. It's in relation to mental health. We have an initiative that we want to share with you, and you'll see how important being a part of radio is. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Cayman joins the world in marking International Youth Day tomorrow. This year's theme is Youth Engagement for Global Action. International Youth Day gives an opportunity to celebrate and mainstream young people's voices, actions, and initiatives. Young people ages 13 to 17 are encouraged to join the DCFS tomorrow at Colliers Beach for a cleanup. For more information, head to the DCFS Facebook page. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. The U.S. is weighing new rules that would temporarily bar U.S. citizens and legal residents from entering the U.S. to control a surge in coronavirus cases. U.S. media say the proposal would affect people suspected of having been exposed to or infected with the virus. U.S. President Donald Trump has often touted his travel bans on foreigners as key to curbing the spread of the virus. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has said a locally developed vaccine for COVID-19 has been given regulatory approval after less than 2 months of testing on humans. Mr. Putin said the vaccine has passed all the required checks, adding that his daughter had already been given it. Officials have said they plan to start mass vaccination in October. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Green Turtle,
Modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Hi, this is Danny Coleman, Director of Hazard Management Cayman Islands. We are now in the hurricane season, and for information on how to prepare and stay safe, please visit our website, www.caymanprepared.ky. Some top tips to bear in mind, given that we are still in the midst of COVID-19. Please make sure you have a mask and sanitizer, you have food supplies to last for 3 to 5 days, a portable radio, personal hygiene and sanitation items, and medical supplies, and any other specific items your family may need during a hurricane. Make sure you know where you will shelter in the event of a storm. If you have pets, please make sure provisions are in place for them too, as the majority of shelters will not take pets. Please visit our website for more tips and tricks on www.caymanprepared.ky or call us on 945-4624. Stay safe, Cayman.
I'm Acting Superintendent Brady Banks of the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service. Speeding, drunk driving, and distracted driving are all extremely dangerous behaviors that can cause accidents and loss of lives that affect not only those involved, but their families and friends alike. We wish to remind all motorists, practice safe driving habits every time you get behind the wheel. Drive within the speed limit and don't drive if you've been drinking. Give 100% of your attention to the road when driving. Equally important to note, we are now entering into our rainy season. Historically, we tend to see increased road collisions due to weather conditions, often resulting in poor visibility and wet road conditions. Remember, extra attention is required if you're driving, as well as increased vigilance of other road users. Drive safely, Cayman Island.
It's the Tempur-Pedic and Sealy Summer of Sleep mattress sale. On now at Brand Source Home Gallery. Tempur-Adapt Hybrid Queen mattress now just $19.99. Save $500 on all Tempur-Breeze mattresses. Save $200 on all Sealy Hybrid mattresses. Check out Brand Source Home Gallery's wide selection of Tempur-Pedic and Sealy mattresses and enjoy savings during the Summer of Sleep sale. On now at Brand Source Home Gallery. Visit us at 209 Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Call 623-5000 for more information.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And you honestly, can recognize that I honestly, truthfully, genuinely, sincerely love my job. And not only because of the excellent people I have to work with, but the wonderful opportunity to see old friends, to meet new acquaintances. You almost think it's like a New Year's Eve song, but it's an opportunity to learn, to share, to invite, to include so many of us in things that make our communities that much stronger. It's always a pleasure to interact with you when you have time in your schedule to come on and talk about things that are important, and especially as we see your work as a community psychiatric nurse, to recognize how important it is for us to appreciate that our health and well-being goes beyond that physical bruise or scrape that needs attention by the physician as she checks it out. But being able to genuinely talk to someone who is competent, who keeps it confidential, and who helps us to appreciate that, life is about enjoying it, but you have to have a frame of mind. And, today in particular, with all that we've experienced, some of us are frustrated, some of us are excited, some of us see the challenges and opportunities, and some of us are, desperately trying to find something that makes us hopeful again. So as you set us up for our discussion and the things that you share with us, maybe if I could invite you and then Ms. Catherine after to talk to us about. Give us a brief intro. I mean, for you, most of us don't know you, but for those in the bracket that don't.
For those in the bracket that don't, I think that must be what, all three people?
I think it's two now.
Is it? Okay. You know, you can't say anything wrong about Cayman Brack, right? Because you know that's my heartstrings.
I know.
You know, so a big shout out to everybody this afternoon, to all of Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, and in particular to all my friends and past colleagues and acquaintances, and even some family on Cayman Brack, because of course my husband's father was a Cayman Bracker, so I'm very proud of that connection. But Dwayne, I think you've hit the head so squarely, on the nail so squarely on the head.
Had a big hammer.
When you talked about the role of the community psychiatric nurse, it's a very broad role, and as a result of that, I get to cross many different territories, many different disciplines, many different terrains. In fact, so it requires land, sea, and what would be the third one? Air. Yeah.
Earth, Wind and Fire.
Earth, Wind and Fire. Yeah. So in that role, which I've been here for over 2 decades now, going into my third, I have always been a big supporter of the radio. So I'm here today as a little two-part discussion. First of all, I'm very pleased that Radio Cayman has given me the opportunity to speak about an initiative of mine called Radiohead for the first maybe 10 minutes or so. And then I have with me in the studio Dr. Catherine Whitaker from the Counselling Centre, and we also have online from her home office Miss Cindy Blakaitis, who's from the EAP. So I want to thank them very much. And we're going to be speaking about the mental health line and just reassuring the public that the line is still operational, how it was formed, and some of the issues that we've found, reasons why people have called the line, what help we've been able to offer, and really how we feel that the mental health community has grown as a result of some of these things that COVID brought to us.
Indeed. And thank you for that. And I think I say this with the greatest deference to any other form of communication. To me, the radio is the best. If you're on a boat and you're using your VHF, or if you have a single sideband, but the radio, listening to the fishing tournament, but just having the transistor radio, is that what it's still called these days?
Yeah, I still call it that.
You can ride your bike, you can be in your kitchen, you could be on your boat, you could be exercising. You don't have to have your eyes fixed to this thing that, again, Dr. Whitaker, maybe you'll guide me, but looking at this thing with its lines and all the images and the lights, it just affects your eyes, at least to me. But the radio, man, it engages you. You hear the crackle and the spark long ago when there was a static, but now it's crystal clear. And you can hear everything that happens. That's what makes Miss Susan's job that much more difficult, but it's another story. So as we invite Miss Cindy into the initial discussion, perhaps first, Dr. Whitaker, a brief intro, and then we'll get back to the mental health part, but talk about the radio. Tell our listeners, as you wish, and to what extent about you.
Sure. How long do you have? I'm just kidding.
I think we go until Tuesday of 24 to 4.
Okay, I think you can do that.
Should be enough time.
No, I'm actually the clinical supervisor for the Counselling Centre. It's part of the Department of Counselling Services for the government, and we see a lot of broad range of families, from children to older adults, families, couples, with the broad spectrum. So one thing that we have about 5 therapists working on staff, and then there's 2 of us that supervise, one of the managers of the groups. We also do a lot of virtual work now as well, and our therapists didn't even skip a beat when we all had to go home, move to our remote offices, and they took it on, and they were amazing. We've had great supervision from our management team too, and we've been kind of trying to stay ahead of the game on what to do next, and how to keep everyone safe, but also how to keep everyone the conversation going. So we also that's where the mental health line came, because we didn't know if we wanted to be able to have those avenues of people to get that support that they needed.
Awesome.
So that's basically what I do.
I will get into that, and then respectfully, Miss Cindy Blakaitis, she's in the studio. Can I steal your joke? She says, no, I'll let her. Miss Cindy, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi. How's everybody?
Oh, man. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation to join us. I know that,
I never miss out on a party with you all.
She's mine's the Gaelic.
There it is, man. And as we get into the whole discussion, we look at the EAP as that extension for us as employees, having a confidential, aspect, but as employers as well, to be able to facilitate. As you sort of join the discussion, any initial comments and thoughts that you may have?
Just when you said that, I think right back to like I heard Catherine and Dipna saying about how we kind of had to reevaluate and do everything that we've been doing almost overnight when the pandemic kind of happened, and how as much as we're offering, like you're saying, we're doing support services for the community, for people, individuals, families. When you bring up the employers as well, none of us were prepared or knowing exactly what to do about this.
Indeed.
And so everybody's been kind of working their way through it, and I'm really, I'm amazed at the spirit of the employers and, their best interest has been to how do we keep our employees healthy. We're asking them to work from home. How do we keep them motivated? How do we support them? How do we make each other's lives easier? And, so when I think about how everybody's really come together in all these different ways, it's just really...
Indeed.
Yeah.
So true. Nurse Dipna, from that perspective, when we think of, as you shared, we talk first about the initiative in radio, and I think to a great extent, not just to today, but for many in our community, the ease, the convenience, the accessibility of the radio. If my uncle, was here, he would be quick to remind us of having this as a way to listen to the BBC, the World News, while he's doing stuff, whether it's 4 o'clock in the morning. We look at Radio Cayman's programming throughout the 24-hour cycle. Something for everybody to listen to at some point, and some of us gravitate towards some things. It's easy, but then by the same token, by the way that we have modernized, and I would probably even say making it even more difficult, the accessibility, you need an internet connection now to get on the radio. I was thinking, how many of us actually have a radio? It's hurricane season, but how many of us have a radio? How many of us have batteries? So share with us.
Yeah, so it's exactly in that vein, Dwayne, that I decided that this was an initiative that needed to be given some flight. For many, many years, I have been a huge supporter of the radio. In fact, if I go back to, where I grew up in the wilds of Northern Ireland on a farm.
Sorry, West Bay, you said? Sorry. The bluff and the back?
Close to the bluff.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And it was on a farm, and I guess I grew up with grandparents, right? So in a very typical generational family, the radio was always on. This was in the late 60s. And anyway, as time moved along, the radio never changed in our house. And being a farming community and being a farmhouse, the one thing that is as much as importance of anything in the kitchen was the radio. So we got up in the morning to the radio, we went to bed at night, and as we all aged, at Christmas we'd get gifts of radios. So my mother would go around there were 6 children, so she would go around all the 4 bedrooms at night switching off the radios before she went into bed to my father and herself, and they themselves had the radio which blared all night. So we've always had radio in our house. And furthermore, I suppose it's a bit coincidental that when the Air Force were stationed in Northern Ireland in the 50s, and after the war and into the early 60s, they actually built a communications base on our land. And that was later renovated, and we moved from that into this house this building that had been renovated, but it was full of cables, and I suppose it was quite advanced in some ways. We didn't understand what it was all about. But as time moved on, and as I trained, and I moved across the water and in England, and I eventually came to Cayman, I always had a radio. And going back to the BRAC earlier, when I first went to work on Cayman BRAC, and it was for a 6-week stint, I was covering for the community psychiatric nurse who was based there at the time, I realised I didn't have a radio. And of course, I didn't bring my radio from Grant. So I went into Bernard's and I bought myself a radio, and I carted this radio, went into the office because the office had a vent in the door. So it became, you could hear sometimes. So it was a good way of blocking out. And the office was in the dental clinic, so I think Jinky and Jenny and all the staff and Sheena, as time moved on, whatever, there was 2 things that were synonymous with that office. One was the radio, and the other was the smell of coffee. But anyway, so everybody got used to the fact at the same time that I would have this radio. But then as time progressed, sometimes I had, rental cars in Cayman Brac that were brought in from Japan, so you couldn't pick up. And of course, as a community psychiatric nurse, you spend a lot of time on the road, on home visits, driving up and down, seeing patients. So I didn't have a radio, so I started carrying a tiny little radio to Cayman Brac for the purposes of using in the car. Well, lo and behold, I think it wasn't one of the first earthquakes that we had. It was probably around, maybe after or before Paloma. And I was in the airport en route to the Brac, and of course this thing hit and it was shaken and we all ran outside, but nobody really knew what was going on. But what did I have in the bag? I pulled out this little radio. Well, talk about being popular. I had about 30 people hanging around me there while we tuned into Radio Cayman, and they said, okay, there's been a 4.4 earthquake, it did such and such position, everything is fine, stay where you are, and this sense of ease and relaxation just simply came across. And then everybody just picked up and went back onto their business.
And that's something that, based on what you shared, I reached out just to inform it, right? Because I think one good way is to gauge where we are as a populace. We're certainly advanced in society. We certainly have good infrastructure, but most of us now, if we want radio, it's on our phones, right? And that, I think, if I didn't misunderstand what I was told by the guys who know better, is the internet connection working, the cellular towers and so on. If that's a problem, we can't get the radio,
that's
right? And then, but which app are you using? Well, are we eating something? But then I asked, well, how many of us actually have a radio? And surprisingly, there were a few of us, radio, what do you mean? No, a radio, little knobs, some little thing. And I lost count after 20. I just quickly checked with 20 people. And one.
Okay, well.
One had a radio.
Okay.
And only just got it because, hurricane season, I better get. All have radios in some capacity connected to something,
but not traditional
radio.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I don't either. I do. Yeah, no, it's working.
Yeah. But that's exactly it, Dwayne. So particularly, in my role as a community psychiatric nurse, I've seen for years that there are a number of individuals in the community, some with long-term and enduring chronic mental health problems, some elderly people who do not have a radio. Now, you might find it hard to believe, and it's not the majority, it is the minority. But those minority are just as important as anybody else. And it's very important that they get the information that everybody gets, and it's reassuring. And it's not just, it's an educational source, it's comforting as well. So this is when I've always had this idea about spreading the word. So I've sometimes had radios that I've passed on to other people and they've shared, and then I've got them back and I've given them to other people. But, with the whole COVID pandemic, I thought this is the opportunity now to reach out and really try and galvanise people into a collective way to get radios for people, and do that in association with DCFS.
All right. I think that ties in well with the whole idea of the mental health line, because radio can be a tool that connects people, informs people, comforts them. As we sort of revisit the conversation, come back and forth. Initially, for your Radio Aid initiative, if we want to help out, we understand the importance of it. What can we do? How can we do it to put a radio in everybody's hand?
Okay, well, it simply is, just contact me, or actually Lois Kellyman at the Department of Children and Family Services is helping me give out the radios, but I'm sure that she would be equally happy if anybody had radios that they wanted to contribute. But simply contact me. My phone number is, we can put that up.
1-800-534.
That's the mental health.
I think that's a private number to it.
That's 197.
That's the exact line. But yeah, they can contact me there, or they can contact me through the outpatient department at the mental. But this is a private initiative, so that's why I haven't got any HSA address on it. I do have my own private email on there, and contact anybody. Hazard management. I've been working a lot with them recently, and Danny and Simon and Leslie and so forth. So again, just to contact them. But I've been very lucky that so far I've been given 33 radios.
Wow.
That's phenomenal, isn't it?
When we think about it, this, Dr. Whitaker, as nurse that Noah was sharing, we are accustomed when we're in our cars, and now I know we've got our playlists and we've got these devices, and they agree. But sometimes just having the radio on, and as you drive in, well, maybe it's the same in Europe. I'm not familiar with driving up there, but you start in Florida, you end up in California, from one coast to the next, right?
Yeah.
And you're driving, and you keep it where it is, and it goes through county and state, and it keeps changing the dial, and new stuff comes on, right? So you go from Spanish, to Spanish, See. And but you get to hear so much, and just like in Cayman, you realize that there's an element of professional sort of commercials, and then there's the locally produced thing. It helps to inform you. So radio to me it's connective.
Absolutely.
Amazing, man.
Absolutely. Especially with the populations that we work with, and the times, and going into hurricane season as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things about radio in the Cayman Islands, is that because we have a smaller population, it's a very reachable population. Most people will listen to some form of radio or hear something at some point in the day. But the things that I think that the death announcements are really important when they're played on Radio Cayman, because you mightn't have heard that someone has passed, and that's really important for the community, for older people in the community. It's a side of Cayman that it's. To me, it's associated because, even back home, and even though I came from a relatively small area, Radio Foyle would not have had a death announcement that was so local and that touched everybody in the community, unless it was a well-known figure. So, that's really important. And, the election results, when you can, we do have that, but, announcements of things happening, when, it's access for everybody. And so many colourful characters come on the radio. People have
some
voice.
Host it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That is very true to it.
I should behave.
Can I shout out who gave the first radio? Because remember, we had a conversation, and she was collecting radios, and so I just was reaching out to, and there's a family on the island, and I just was reaching out to all my community, and I'm also a member of the sailing community, and this family, the Croft family, so Tori Croft, and they've been going through their own struggles in the whole time through pandemic and everything, and she was the first person to reach out and say, of course, absolutely.
Wow.
And so I was able to just forward on what I had to Dipna, and
and I accepted it willingly, and it was very precious to me, because I knew that this was the first radio that Radiohead was given, so it had to be given to the right person.
That's what Susan has, right? That's gold plated radio.
Susan has her own radio station. She doesn't need a radio.
Oh my!
But anyway, so I thought I have to give it to the right person, and lo and behold, about 2 weeks later, I was given a new referral. And it was a young man who was living by himself and living under very, very, I won't go into the details, but living under very difficult and very challenging circumstances. And actually, I have to say, it was a very, very humbling experience. And anyway, amongst the things that we were able to do, and then again, this comes, this is the beauty of being a community psychiatric nurse. You can touch people on many levels, and you've got contacts with various different, you're a great resource. You mightn't be able to solve everything, but you're a resource for others. Anyway, he had no forms of media communication. He did have a phone, but he had very limited data in an isolated environment. And I was able to give that to him. And he was delighted with it. And then when I got Radiohead up and running, he said to me, I want to give that radio to my brother. And his brother has some serious medical challenges, and he has sight issues as well. And he's essentially at home. He's not able to work anymore. So I said, no, you keep that radio. I have other radios. I'm going to give him one. So I went and gave it to the gentleman. And he wasn't able to see. And I said, okay, I'm going to tune it into Radio Cayman, because I just think, well, that's a broad spectrum radio station that kind of covers everything.
It does one.
But then you can, it's you can twizzle it up and down to suit your needs. And he said, no, man, he said, put it onto some, what do you call it, rap. Rap, I don't know what to get.
That's Joel's show at 3 o'clock.
Okay. So anyway, I tuned it in, and I put it by him in the bed, and you should have seen the smile on his face. That guy could have lit up the whole of Grand Cayman with the smile, the twinkle in his eyes.
Just a radio.
And that was a simple thing. So, and that's one of many. I mean, there's other great stories.
Well, we can use that when we come back and tie it into the idea of, there is necessary discussion that we're continue to have. And I'm very, very grateful to one of your colleagues, Dr. Alexandra Borden,
absolutely,
for sharing with us on a regular basis
She's
our
great.
monthly Mental Health Matters, getting us to talk about it. So the mental health, helpline that is available, the idea that we can still continue to reach out, access people, and to make them feel, less isolated because they have information. And to think of it, you may not be able to as easily read something on a screen or a print, but if you can hear and you have a radio and it's just a news blurb, or headline news on the hour-long news, you at least not, in a sense, feeling, well, I don't know what's going on, So it's important. When we come back, we'll talk more about that.
Yes.
And of course, Miss Cindy, we have not forgotten about you.
I'm here.
All right. Well, you hear that, SBS? Hold tight. All right. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
We are now in the hurricane season, and to survive a hurricane, you need to be informed. If you have been informed by official sources that a hurricane is approaching the Cayman Islands, and you live in a low-lying area that is prone to flooding or near the beaches, which may be swept by high tides or storm waves, please seek a safe place and high ground. If the only way for you to get to a safe place is a road that is also likely to be flooded during a storm, please leave home early. Don't run the risk of being stranded. This has been a public service announcement from your community station, Radio Cayman.
Green Turtle. Modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us, and truly, truly grateful to the community in which we live, the resources that we have, and that sense that we have a lot that we can give, and collectively we can give more because we have a willing heart. Yeah, and Nurse Tipner, thanks for sharing with us. Thanks for arranging this discussion. Dr. Whitaker, thank you equally to you and your colleagues over at the Counseling Center. We spend our taxpayers' resources sometimes and we question, well, why did we build that road? Why did we, do that thing there? Because we're not quite sure in time we see the benefit. But to have, people who are competent, qualified, confidential, who are committed to what they're doing, being able to offer a resource for us, it's immeasurable. And to Miss Cindy, thanks for joining us. We are only, wishing that you could have physically been in the studio, but some people need to take one for the team, and since you were the youngest, you were outvoted.
I like that. I do know she's the youngest.
Yeah.
This is going well, Dwayne.
You guys can hear me.
Yes, Mom.
My co-worker here, who is my dog,
Jelly,
snoring. Yes, she keeps snoring. So I started thinking, oh no, I wonder if they think that's me.
Oh, we were actually thinking that, so that's why we didn't come to you. No, just kidding. We didn't hear anything.
I thought, they let her. She's got a little nap. Let's just leave her alone.
Oh man.
Like, no, we're here.
But if I could maybe ask of you, I believe anyway, we believe that in the Cayman community, that more of us are starting to appreciate that it's important to talk to someone, not just when you are at a point where, well, you don't know what else to do, or you've had, a little too much to drink and you're at the bar with your good friend. The notion is that having someone to talk to who knows how to listen, what questions to ask, and what resource. I think we're gradually getting there without appreciating the stigma that was once. Miss Cindy, before I sort of, well, in fact, with great respect to our guests who are physically and visually present, maybe ask you, how are you finding that? We watched the roles that you played in the past and now where you are. Is that something that I'm a little bit too optimistic, or is actually getting to that point where people are starting to appreciate, let me come and chat with, this counselor, this psychiatrist, this psychologist, this individual, because this weight is getting, and I'm not quite sure how to bear it. What's happening? How do you think we're responding?
Well, that's I appreciate what you're saying, because it has been it's been an ongoing awareness building over the years of recognizing the importance of mental health, and that it is your health, whether it's mental or physical, it's all important. And I think, like, I know for us, we're busier than ever because I do think that people are taking, they are recognizing more and more that, there's not anything necessarily wrong. They don't have something that they need to, quote unquote, complain about or anything like that, but people are just recognizing that they do need to unload. They need to share what they're going through. And, I always say this when I'm going to new companies to sort of endorse EAP, and that, what we're there for is that, we all have our friends and our family, and there's people that talk to us and we talk to them and they listen to us and we listen, but at some point, you worry about your support system. You worry about those people in your life. And the beauty of like a mental health professional is you don't have to worry about them. They are 100% there for you. It's client driven, it's client focused, and you don't have to worry about being judged or, I didn't take the advice they gave me, or any of that stuff. Like that's not the goal in it. Just, it's about having a professional and someone that's in your corner no matter what it is that you just want to talk about. And, so that's what I think mental health and therapy and that sort of aspect of things, that's what it's all about for me. So I find when, we've been building that level of awareness in the community for years, and I think people are finally really starting to see it, right? Or hear it and feel it.
But that's the thing, and as I look at a quick comment shared with us on our email, I read it over and thought, okay, a comma there would have made a difference. But we're sending things through sometimes, and this is well, maybe not after today, this was a good friend. So, but the notion that as we live in this community and coming through, still continuing to experience what we're facing now, there are immense pressures on our lives. What is a year from now is going to look like? Not the political landscape only, the economic and social. Will the relationships that we have with spouses and siblings continue? Will we be able to engage and interact in a way that we would like to? Again, can I may ask each of you in your professional capacity to guide me so I'm not irresponsible nor disrespectful, but I'm saying this is not a new normal. This is abnormal. I don't want this to be the new normal in the sense that I can't call up a friend and say, hey, what are you doing? Let's go fishing. Let's sit and have a coffee or come in the backyard and play a game. The notion, as Dr. Lockhart shared, we talked about social distance, and just that word or phrase alone was strong and maybe unfortunate that we use that. Let's be physically distant, right? Still distant, but physically, not socially. And, well, our cats and dogs, they're social creatures. Most of us who are introverts still at some point want to be social. But, Dr. Catherine, from that perspective, are we at risk then when we look at mental health and not appreciating the importance of, one, recognizing that we need to talk to somebody about whichever, and two, somehow misconstruing that, that means that medication, that means that you're whatever that means.
Something, use that word. Yeah, no, I think one thing that I've really appreciated, I think of what I always take in things that happen and say, what is this for? What's the opportunity that's provided for me? And one thing I'm very grateful for in these last few months is the opportunity to collaborate with these amazing women that are in the room and on the phone. You know, and just I would have not, we work so much with the community, and we don't have the time necessarily to be able to collaborate. And this has forced us to collaborate, which has been amazing. Like, I've just been so blessed to be able to pick up the phone and give Dipna a call, or be able to chat with Cindy about something, because we've had to collaborate on the mental health line. And in that sense, then I also work with a wellness committee at the government too, and actually we're doing mental health conversations tomorrow on a webinar, and at 1, just to plug that, because
yes, please, yes,
and then the next week too at 1, and it's going to help just have a conversation around mental health, not to make it seem like, oh, I have something wrong with me, but we go to the doctor all the time if something hurts. And our brain is so, you know, malleable and so impressionable, and just to be able to have a healthy brain and do basic things like drinking water and breathing, you know, having to tell people to breathe, that's so important. And so this has given us the opportunity to do that. And like Cindy said, it's a lot. We have a lot of people, but to collaborate, now I feel like we see people faster, and because we do telehealth, I'm able to refer them faster over to mental health to assess for medication, not that they would have to have it, and then have the conversations with parents and family members.
I think too, as I listen to you, I recognize that you reference, you know, medication, the fact that we are collaborating more as professionals, the ease and access and convenience with that collaboration kind of reminds me. Was there a song by Vanilla? Stop collaborating. We're starting to do that more and more, and that may help us to appreciate that. Okay, you need medication, but it isn't because something is wrong. This can help you to regulate that thing, and this professional who can tell you about it, it may help so that you can focus. Maybe you're not fidgety, maybe you know you're not getting enough sleep and adequate rest because you're constantly going. If we don't have that sort of dialogue, access, we're going to put people in a place, and it comes back to the radio. These discussions, that person who was able now to listen via radio without having to be inconvenienced and stop what she's doing because she's watching some screen, whether it's the computer or otherwise, you can still be informed. But Miss Cindy, if I could then ask you, from the employer's perspective, and utilization programs like employee assistance and the like, the referrals, the uptake, the notion that the employee is going to access and have an ongoing sort of assistance. Do you think as employees and employers that we are sufficiently aware not only of the benefit but how to access and the importance of accessing so that your colleagues and family don't necessarily misconstrue and attach some, unfortunate stigma to this utilization?
So that's the thing, is that we've struggled over the years trying to, make it clear with employees that, that you can access the program for any reason at all. Like, it doesn't have to be an employment-related issue. It doesn't have to be that your manager referred you. It's none of that. It's completely open to an employee, or even a spouse or partner of the employee, to just come in and access the services. And so that's one point that we've been trying to reinforce, and I think a lot of employers are promoting internally for their employees to say, this is hard for everybody. We're in unprecedented times. Make sure you reach out, because this is why EAP is here. This is why the different services in the community are here, is to be there. And so it doesn't have to be this, massive event that, there's something really wrong and traumatic that you have to reach out for help. It's just good to, we have clients that'll access us, and maybe it's 1 session, 2 sessions, or maybe it's a little bit more complex, and it's an ongoing relationship with a counselor for a long period of time, depending what's going on. But the important part is that, it's important for it to get utilized. It's important for people to realize before they get to the end of their rope.
Okay. And, you shared that whole notion. Before we get to that breaking point, Yeah. And it's sometimes not in of itself, it's not
easy.
Yeah, you never know what, I didn't want to say the straw that breaks the camel's back. We just sometimes don't know that what's going to trigger that thing that does us more harm, causes us to regret. The word, not even just the action, the word. Catherine, from that perspective, then, can we internally assess? We know most of us know when we're feeling a bit stressed, Maybe all the assignments that we're given, the deadlines, maybe it's the commitments of the family. Are there little things that we can cue in on, or do we need to be particularly introspective? So that we are aware of what we're doing and don't let it get to that point that Ms. Cindy shared?
I think having the conversation is the first thing, but also you struck a really good point. A lot of people, our body tells us when we're stressed, and a lot of times we just slough it off and we don't say anything. And it's so important to just stay up on that. And when you don't have a really big awareness of your physical body, or when you're stressed, and I know there's a lot of people in like high pressure jobs and businesses, and they won't sleep and they're not just doing the basics. That's when it starts to pressure, get the pressure come up, because you have all these deadlines. But if you don't take time, we always talk about the self-care, like we will get together, or we'll keep each other accountable. Like, how are you doing? Did you take a vacation day? Did you take, are you taking time off? Are you, are we going out for coffee? Like we'll because as professionals, we have to hold I just had that conversation with my supervisor this morning about what I'm doing to help myself maintain, because we hear conversations all day long as well, but how much more are the people hurting? And I think also one thing when I was listening to you, I think sometimes people are afraid of what other people think of them, and that's a big deal. And when we kind of come to a realization, it's like we're all human and we're all fallible and we all have feelings. Another thing that this whole situation has taught us is that we are all together in this world. And when something affects us, it affects us, everybody. This is affecting everyone. And so for us to even have that connection and reach out to someone, even to help someone else, do a random act of kindness, will also help you start to realize what you can do to make yourself, feel better, or stop yourself from pushing over the edge.
Cut me, do I not bleed? We're all
human. We're all human.
It's amazing how we are sometimes not mindful of what is available, or our stubbornness to acknowledge that we need a little extra help with some things. With that, Miss Susan, we have a short break. Is that what she's sharing? See that? You got to be mindful of the Susan. As I said, you don't want to be on the south side of Susan. It's not a place to be. All right, we're going to pause and take a break. When we come back, we'll conclude the discussion. Remind us of Radiohead. Tell us about the mental health, helpline. And Miss Cindy, if you rush, you can get a hair with chocolate. So we'll wait for you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
While the primary source of alcohol for underage drinkers is people they know, research shows that 7 to 9% of those who report alcohol use in the Cayman Islands purchase alcohol directly from retailers. Tips Off-Premise helps retailers focus on verifying the legal drinking age when selling alcohol. Since the program was introduced here in the Cayman Islands back in 2005, we have trained over 400 persons and partnered with over 10 retailers. Contact us on 949-9000 to have your staff trained today. This message is brought to you by Radio Cayman and the National Drug Council.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic, your life connected.
Register now for the 3rd Annual Chamber of Commerce Economic Forum, taking place online on Friday, August 14th. This year's theme, Rebuilding a Better Cayman, will tackle the effects the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the local and regional economy and how the private and public sectors can work together to create a more durable and more sustainable future. Don't miss out. Visit caymanchamber.ky to register for a full day or half day today. Corporate ticket bundles available. In partnership with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, the forum is made possible thanks to sponsors CUC, DART, Kensington Management Group, Cayman Enterprise City, and Hurley's Media.
I'm Acting Superintendent Brady Banks of the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service. Speeding, drunk driving, and distracted driving are all extremely dangerous behaviors that can cause accidents and loss of lives that affect not only those involved, but their families and friends alike. We wish to remind all motorists, practice safe driving habits every time you get behind the wheel. Drive within the speed limit and don't drive if you've been drinking. Give 100% of your attention to the road when driving. Equally important to note, we are now entering into our rainy season. Historically, we tend to see increased road collisions due to weather conditions, often resulting in poor visibility and wet road conditions. Remember, extra attention is required if you're driving, as well as increased vigilance of other road users. Drive safely.
But I do have some questions.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us, and thanks so much for the opportunity for us to focus on mental health. And as we have the truly wonderful pleasure of highlighting some of our civil servants and those who have that sense of public service. So on the phone from the EAP, Ms. Cindy Baclitis joins us in the studio, Dr. Catherine Whitaker. Right? Formula of East End, number of North Inniskeil.
That's right.
From the Counselling Centre. And I think that's a resource the government has that we as a community don't really appreciate as much of what the benefits are. And then, of course, as a day job, probably a 24/7 job, the community psychiatric nurse, Nurse Carton. Thank you. You started out, and as we recognize that you have another meeting in less than 10 minutes to get to, Radiohead, I like how you referenced that. But that's mental health wellness. I mean, think of many of us, whether it's, I call it tinnitus, I don't know if that's the word that people, how they pronounce it, who want to hear that noise, as I call it, all the time. They have the radio on, they're cooking, whatever they're doing. But those who just want comfort, whether they're by themselves, whether they just need to get out the other noises, they put on the radio, whatever they're listening to. Hopefully let's talk today, but that's a different story. And the information. The hurricane season is upon us. They want to make sure that they're informed. Radio with batteries, probably going to be almost impossible not to get information if you have a radio that works with batteries, and for what? A couple of cents almost?
Not that much. I mean, radios are fairly affordable. Some on island could be a wee bit cheaper. But fortunately,
sorry, it was a little bit
wee bit cheaper.
She's going to brag too long then. Is that how they say it over there?
A wee bit. But yeah, I mean, there are affordable radios out there. Yes. But for people, this Radiohead initiative, it is for people who are in a position that they can't afford a simple radio. Because as I know, there's a lot of people who can and a lot of people who are very able. But for those that can't, so particularly elderly people who are living alone or perhaps living with a helper, or people with chronic and enduring mental health problems, or people with perhaps, drug and alcohol issues, right? These are important that we accommodate everyone, and everybody has a reputable source of information. Not just as a source of information, it also is a form of entertainment. It's huge entertainment. It's a great educator. The amount of things that I have learned from radio over the years, and that I have learned subliminally, because unfortunately I'm one of these people that very often go to bed with the radio on at night. So I often I wake up and I think, wow, I should do this, and I think, how did I know that? But you see, it was listening to the radio and I'm absorbing everything, taking everything in. You know, it makes for, it's just very relaxing. So Radiohead was established, and the notion of it being radio and the head symbolising the importance for our mental health, for our mind, you know, as a companionship. Mm-hmm. And simply the role is to keep everyone informed, and you are alone. Mm-hmm. There was a phrase, you talked about phrases earlier, Dwayne, that were used during COVID, and one of the popular ones was "you're not alone." Well, that's not strictly true.
You are.
There are many people who are alone, and even in the depths of difficulties and challenges, and if you don't have the right help, you are alone.
Yeah.
Right?
As I tell people, you can be alone but not lonely.
Exactly. Exactly. So it was so that was Radiohead, and that's hopefully, so you can contact me. We'll put up the details on Radio Cayman's page. But just to round up everything,
you call your sister Sheena to do that.
I could.
Norman's like, Paul, you can't take
I'm
anywhere.
sure Sheena would be absolutely delighted to, and she asks after everybody all the time. But funnily enough, she was here last August, and she was obviously staying with me, and she said, "Oh my God," she said, "you're so like Daddy." She said, "You have radios everywhere." And it's true. You talk about that person that had one radio. If you come to my house, it's like there's radios everywhere, hidden in spots. But in any case, it was in the vein of Radiohead, and prior to that this is one of the great things that came out of COVID, right? Yeah. And we know that there's been so many positive things, but the mental health helpline also was born out of COVID, and that was born out of the Human Concerns Cluster, which I'm a part of, which is a part of the NEOC. And so when everything kicked off, and I thought, okay, as a resource and support for mental health, what am I going to do? What am I going to do here that's going to be useful and resourceful and bring help to people in need? And I thought, okay, I could do a mental health helpline. Wow, fantastic. But, the thing is, it's not something that you set up generally within, a few days. No. These things take months, and sometimes they take much longer. So let me tell you, I can say that I honestly sat at my desk, and I don't know why we scratch our head when we think, but it was true, I did. But fortunately, I was able to...
Give us an image.
I literally sat there scratching my head, panicking. But, I reached out to the Psychological Association of the Cayman Islands and to Shannon, and she was a tremendous resource, because my biggest concern was, how am I going to staff this helpline? Yeah. Right? Because to get volunteers to do it, to get it set up, to have people trained, it's not going to happen that quickly. So we contacted people through that. But then I thought, but wait... We have the counselling centre, we have EAP, we have this tremendous cadre of people right there. If I can just speak to Judy Seymour and to Catherine and to Cindy and ask, are you willing to help support the mental health helpline? And unsurprisingly, but surprisingly in some ways, because everybody was busy, absolutely. What do you want us to do? Yeah. And honestly, that mental health helpline, I can say, was set up within 56 hours. And it went live on the 20th of March. And it's been, the TCC have been doing the scheduling since, and I'll let Catherine finish up, but I just want to point out and give a big vote of thanks to Flow and to Digicel for making it happen, for being so accommodating, for working with us, for working with each other, and for Digicel for continuing, and also for the donation of phones from Mr. Nicholson Co, who asked, do you need mobile phones? Yes. How many? And we got them. I'm absolutely amazing. Yeah. So it enabled the service then to go mobile, because prior to that it was at my desk. So it was like, was the phone going to ring now? So we were able to make it mobile, and I'll let Catherine take over and talk about it. So thank you to everybody.
Yes. Yes, and Nicole, and Judy actually called me in the office, and she was just like, "We need to do this. We need to figure this out, because people need this, and we would love to have it as a 24-hour call, but we just don't have the staff at the moment. We didn't have the staff to cover, and so we set it up right away. We did the policies and the procedures, and got that done in a couple days, and got that over to DIPNA, and then Family Resource Center and the Counseling Center, because we work in the same building under the same auspice of Department of Counseling Services. Staff just jumped in and covered, on-course covered, EAP covered. We have
Cindy was actually one of the first.
Yeah, she's just
in the afternoon. Remember, Sydney?
Amazing.
I don't remember, but yeah.
Yes, and she's out there on weekly, but we have people in the community that through the Psychological Association that cover too. So we have it staffed 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Again, the number's it's 1-800-534-6463.
Which spells Mind.
Yes, and it's still operational. And also to point out that we're very fortunate that this helpline is staffed by professionals in mental health. So when you ring up and you need to speak to someone, you're not getting through to a receptionist. Somebody's going to take you're speaking to a mental health professional.
Yeah.
And what you say is confidential and it is private, and they're able to deal with it and cope with it.
Absolutely. And we haven't had a lot of calls since COVID's, we've opened up more of our services, but we do want to let people know that it is still free. We had some technical difficulties for the first month because we started it so fast, and we just said, look, this is the vision, let's run with it. And so we did have some things going on, but now it's still up. It's up. If they don't get an answer for some reason, it will go to a voicemail so that we can give them a call back, or if it rings on that person's phone, they will call them back. However, it's a service that's actually been very great. Now we don't have a lot of calls during the day, but the people that do still have needs and services, we've collaborated with all of the partners in the community, because even EAP and the counseling center, our office, I can't speak to Cindy's, but we take in about 25 intakes a week almost. And so we have a backlog. So what we do is we see if they have insurance, and we want to make sure they're connected with the right people if they need services faster, just so that we can help everyone, because that's the reason why we don't market, just because we do have a lot of need. And then we've been able to reach out to our community partners, and if they have the resources, they're able to see them even more immediate. We send them to their primary care. We send them to, mental health. We've sent them to even just like the flu line and the helplines, the other lines too.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate this, and perhaps as we continue, in the weeks and months ahead, focusing on the importance of our health, our mental health, whether it's through the Radio Hit Initiative or otherwise, just come back on and have this discussion. Miss Cindy, thanks for waking up the dog. We don't have, but thank you always for that wonderful laugh and that brilliant smile. But the assistance, and I'm glad that we can have this. It's a pleasure to include you, and I recognize the importance of our health overall. So. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
This is a month too. Going to pass in oblivion, and maybe this year will be forever celebrated.
Wow, yeah.
So thanks. That's it now.
Thank you
all
very
the best
much, Dwayne. It's always
all
a
right.
pleasure.
The mental health line is mental health helpline. Is that a mental health helpline? Yeah. It's there. It's 1-800-534-MIND, which was 6465?
6463.
6463. Yeah, I remember that. I always put MIND, but we'll announce it. All right. We're going to pause and take a break and go to the news. When we come back, there'll be some open line. I've got some other things to share with you. And a big announcement. No, there's no big announcement. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Civil servants and elected government officials are doing their part to support the community under a new CIG Cares initiative. Civil servants can opt into the initiative via monthly payroll deductions, which began in July and will continue through December of this year, a one-time lump sum contribution, or a combination of both. Signing up is simple and can be done via the COVID-19 employee donation form. A valid employee number will be needed to complete the form. Opting out, however, at any time is permitted. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. People in Beirut have attended a vigil for more than 200 victims of the huge explosion that devastated the Lebanese capital a week ago. A crowd stood in silence near the ruins of the city's port as a Muslim call to prayer was broadcast and church bells tolled at 6:09, 3:09 GMT. That was the exact time when 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate stored unsafely in a port warehouse detonated. There has been an outrage that so much hazardous material was kept there. And Seattle's chief of police has announced her resignation on the same day that the city council voted to slash the police budget and lay off officers. Carmen Best's decision comes amid pressure on police after George Floyd's death unrest in Seattle and budget shortfalls due to the current pandemic. Chief Best became the city's first black police chief in 2018, leading a 1,400-member force. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. And I know, some of you go, geez, when he's going to stop joking about which day of the week it is? Well, when I start remembering what day of the week it is. Well, I'm hopeful, prayerful that as each day unfolds, that you'll find not only more energy and enthusiasm, more excitement and exhilaration, and the opportunities are there so that you start to increasingly look with hopeful expectation. Let's make it as best as we can. There is, without question, a lot of challenges, trials and tribulations. There is something. There are probably many things that may weigh us down. But let's try to find the good in everything that we look at. Let's see how we can say too, this too shall pass. Maybe we can't embrace the thing that we're experiencing, but maybe we can endure it. And with that, there is the mental health helpline that's available. It's a free call. It's a toll-free call, 1-800-534-MIND. There is the Department of Counseling Services, the counseling center is there. They're the private, sort of psychologists and psychiatrists and physicians. There are our GPs. There is the mental health unit. At the HSA, we have a lot of resources. So let us please not ignore our overall health. Just like you may have done something and you don't feel quite right because you've injured yourself, and you get that checked out. When you go to the physician, she checks, make sure whether it's an x-ray or just a bandage, make sure you're okay. Maybe you cut yourself and you need a tetanus shot. We won't ignore those things. Well, if you're feeling a bit challenged because you're not sure, will I continue to be employed? Will my business continue to be able to exist so that I can continue to pay these people that have been with me for so long, and they've got their mortgage and their children's education to worry about, and you carrying that burden? Well, it could be anything. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to who is confidential and competent. So let's not ignore it. Now, it is open line, and we can talk about other subjects if you wish. You can weigh in on anything that you choose. Again, on behalf of Nurse Dipna, she wanted to say a special thanks to all who have assisted, who have donated radios. The telecoms will come on board and to ensure that from the mental health helpline being accessible to those who are staffing and volunteering, and to the rest of us. So if you need some assistance, I want a radio to make you less isolated, certainly more included, but go right ahead. Now, if we could, there is a health and wellness sort of initiative in partnership are under the auspices of the Red Cross. We recognize that government agencies, including the Department of Children and Family Services, the Education Ministry, the Health Services Authority, just to name a few, are part of the initiative. We want to quickly look at a reminder so that we get it right. Well, this is the third week of it. So for those within the Georgetown area, today it's going to be at the Georgetown Primary School between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Again, tomorrow it's going to be at the Georgetown Primary School. So today and tomorrow. The following day, on Thursday, going to be at the Wesley Holders Church over there in Windsor Park. And then Friday, the First Baptist Christian School. But it's also on Saturday as well at the Seafarers Hall. So first appointment is at 4, the last one's at 7 p.m. It goes on between 4 and 8. So today at Georgetown Primary, please avail yourself of this opportunity. Well, Miss Susan's right there. We don't have any big announcements to make just yet. Maybe we might. We don't have any songs to sing, but what we have is even better. A chance to hear from our callers as we go to our phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, bright sunny day.
Yes, Mom. A wonderful, wonderful day. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. I need you to invite and encourage His Excellency the Governor and all of our ministers and councillors and elected MLAs and you name it, that we need them to bring this domestic partnership bill and amendments to the 12 laws that we already have that they're going to do that in relation to this domestic partnership bill. We need them to come on the radios to explain these things, and so that the public can call in and question them or give their input. And they can also do it as a press briefing, like they did the one for the COVID-19. They can also have meetings by the Lion Center and by where the courthouse is, because those spaces are big enough that people can sit 6 feet apart. People can stand up by the road or whatever and listen once they have good mics that we can hear loud and clear, loud and far.
If I can ask of you, and only if you wish, I just want to engage you, because I've had a number of people from, as you could say, almost every electoral district, if you were to put it in that sense, all 19, from people who are permanent residents, people who are registered voters and have registered to vote from the time they could and have voted in as many times as they were able to. And some of the questions were not questions that were prepared or felt able to answer, and some were just rhetorical comments. But if I could ask you, by repeating some of the things that were shared. One, people have said, well, listen, not only this piece of legislation, but all the accompanying legislation, the efficiency, the quickness with which that was sent to us shows that we can get things done when we want, but it must also indicate
that the main things we can't get done. How many years has it been that we can't get our own passports in Cayman unless it's an emergency passport? That's only a temporary one.
Right.
This is ridiculous. I think the Cayman Islands must be the only country in the world that does not issue their own passport. Now, why do we still have to wait to get them from England? We should be getting them here. Don't we have the money to buy the biometric or whatever you call it passport that we can use?
But is that the issue? And I'm glad you referenced the passport, because that may help us to appreciate the Cayman Islands and how the Caymanians may see the island as a country and a nation and the like. But is it then that with this we're just subjects? I don't say that to be derogatory by any means. We're subject to what the UK believes is in our best interest relative to governance and the like. So with this legislation, go back to your request, which I don't believe would be necessarily unreasonable, but maybe two things are immediately apparent. One, we had members of the Legislative Assembly having the opportunity to say and to share and to contribute. And then secondly, we now have what is seemingly a decision by the administrative power as to what it is that needs to happen for this possession, this territory, in order to make sure that we're conforming or doing the right thing. So at the end of the day, is it really going to matter what we do if this is how it's going to be? Because, what they can say so.
Well, the problem with them, they got so many of them over there. That's why they want to push it on us. And, you do have parents that are very good parents. You have some parents that are really absolutely no good. They're druggies or they're drunkards, and they don't do anything that they should to bring up their children right. They don't treat them good. And I think that's the same treatment we're getting from the UK, I'm sorry to say so, in this respect anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Cayman has been just as much Great Britain to them, or more, than what they have been Great Britain to us. When I was working civil aviation, a fire service advisor was there from England, and he said to me one day, he said, "What's so great about Great Britain?" Nothing. He said that he was from England.
But then if we have... I'm trying to think of where we are now with respect to, in particular, this piece of legislation, but also previous governors and other legislation, whether it was the issue of amendments to the bill under the laws for wiretapping without court orders, or information to be collected but presumably not to be used as evidence and not admissible in court. I forget which piece of legislation that is. But we've had things happen in the past, legislation not being assented to, or legislation being sort of proposed in a way. It's been that way for a long time. We look at orders in council in the past relative to increasing the numbers in the ministerial level to different things. Our people obviously should be aware that this is how it is under the administrative document that we call the Constitution. So why no? Why the fuss now? This is just part and parcel for what we are.
Well, because the world is getting more ignorant and more disrespectful of the Bible and the God's laws. Yeah, we're supposed to live by the law of the land, but it is supposed to be good laws of the land that we live by, something that's outstanding and good for the people, but not what's bad for the people.
Mm-hmm. Well...
If these people want to adopt children, they want to have a child, or they want to have a family, you have to marry the opposite sex. So if two people, two women, and two men cannot produce a child, they should not be allowed to adopt children. That's my opinion.
And I respect you for sharing that.
As it is, as far as I'm concerned, the way the governor is pushing it for these people, he must be afraid of them. And as for that one, that I heard that she was married and she had a child. She was supposed to be the father, and now she's turned into a woman. So who this poor child is supposed to be calling father or daddy?
Well, if I then could then ask, I mean, because I, with the great respect, just trying to look at it from as a dispatched and objective approach, not to hit at the politicians in any which way, but to think that we have this perception of what our politicians are and what they can do because we've elected them. So we believe that this is it. So we have, in this case, 19, 17 of whom made a vote and a contribution or like. One sat as speaker, the other was not present at the time. Now the vote came down to one in one direction, so it was a close vote. If the simple majority, if you had that tighter vote, a closer vote, isn't it now for the politicians to lead the charge to do something? And if they can't or won't, then what?
I appreciate every single one of those members, elected members, who voted no. Each one of them spoke out loud and clear the truth about everything, exactly how things should be and the way it is. I thank them. They are trying to follow the Bible like the rest of us are trying to do. And some of the other ones, as far as I'm concerned, they just ignored God, the Bible, and the law of God just to please these two people and a few other ones. And if they're going to make them rule, they're going to rule over us. I mean, talk about discrimination amongst them. Who the hell hates people any more than them? They're hating everybody. They're hating God. They're hating Christianity. They're passing more remarks than enough. So they're going to allow them to rule now. And the thing about it is they're talking is foolishness because, this was going to be marriage. This was going to be, forget what they call it.
Right.
Well, this is what the two of them are asking for, marriage. So if once they get what they want with this one, they're going to appeal to the Privy Council to get married. So what is the difference?
Yeah. So then if I can then ask, again, only from the perspective of the constant questions and comments. So if we have a vote in the Legislative Assembly, if we have an elected government, if we believe we have a healthy democracy, and the political directorate, so the Honourable Premier and his cabinet and the others who have been entrusted with the political leadership at this local level, if the general populace isn't in favour with it, if they don't think that this is representative of the social values and at this time isn't something that they want, why don't we see a call for the politicians to resign or to champion this or to whatever it is that you think would happen in a civilized democracy? In the absence of that, are we to conclude that really, nobody really cares that much and that this is reflective of the majority?
Listen, we cannot allow people to push us around the way they would like. Mm-hmm. We have our rights and our beliefs, and we have to stand up to our rights and our beliefs more than these that are doing ungodly things and want to push good people around to live in their sin. There's nobody stopping them from living together or wanting to love each other. They can go ahead.
But then if we have two people, let's say two of the same sex, who love each other, who have a great relationship and they're together, but like the biological male and the biological female who have come together and they want to be married and have children, and again that's
a woman no marry a woman and a man does not marry a man. That is not right.
Right. But if I could somehow maybe try to understand, if two people of the same sex have, like I said, a very great relationship, would our populace be okay with them having something that allows them to be able to, I don't want to be leading in the question, but enjoy the same sort of benefits as a biological male and a biological female who've married? So inheritance, health care, pension, the rights of being able to say something in the event that one of them is incapacitated, all the other things that would accrue to seemingly a married couple. Is that something that you think our society would be okay with if it's this thing, but it's not called marriage, or is that we're opposed to the thing simply because we don't think that two people of the same sex should be in that sort of arrangement?
It is without amending any of the laws, but it looks to me like that's what this is more about than love and marriage. Getting what other one go when other one dies, and about if they get sick, somebody to speak out from or to look after them. All they have to do is get a registered power of attorney to be their legal guardian, and they can carry out their wishes with that too, as long as they're alive.
Okay, so
whether they're sick or whatever the case may be that they need them to do it for.
All right, let me ask one other thing, and if this is incorrect, and correct me for those who know otherwise, we understand that a man and a woman who are married have separated but not divorced, right? So if they've separated, we may refer to it as an estranged relationship. But so one or the other is no longer in the matrimonial home. They've now separated. They at some point will consider divorcing. We understand that in a case like that, if something was to happen and one becomes either gravely ill or passes away, this estranged spouse has the, how did the lawyer put it to me? Anyway, has the right, has the duty, the authority as to what happens to the spouse, even though they were estranged, they were not living together, they were not married. So in that case, should we perhaps make amending legislation to make sure that in that case, the adult child, the parents, they nominated somebody else, and not the estranged spouse? I mean, should that be something that should be addressed?
Yes, I agree, because sometimes the children love the parents more than the husband love the wife, or the wife love the husband.
Yes, ma'am. I hear you. And again, I don't have, in this case, many of the answers. Maybe it's unfortunate that you share an emotive thing that we get caught up without fully appreciating the consequence. As we go to the final break, any last quick thoughts you want to share?
For us to get our passports in Cayman,
Mm-hmm.
and for us to be able to get our U.S. visa easier than what it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
That must been for the last several years, because 40 years ago and less, the U.S. Council used to come to Cayman, and we could get a U.S. visa stamped with our passport within 1 hour.
Well, then I come back to the question, and if the public, the voting public, has looked at the politicians, and if the Premier doesn't mind because he's the political leader in the country, and say, well, wait a minute, you were focusing on this, but what about, as you shared, the passports and the visas and the other things? If we're caught up in arms over this thing, why are we not, making a noise and a fuss and trying to get the other things that are probably as important or maybe more so? All right. Respectfully, let's just pause and take this final quick short break. And when we come back, I don't know what kind of trouble I'll be in, but I'll be here. We'll see. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today. Your Radio Cayman 7 a.m. news, brought to you by Cayman National, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit www.caymannational.com for up-to-date information for all your financial needs, and follow us on social media.
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19, it is important to stay prepared for other disasters now that we're in the hurricane season. Here are some post-hurricane safety tips from the Department of Environmental Health. Did you know that you must discard fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, foods in canisters, dented, leaking, or rusting cans after they have come in contact with floodwater? For full guidance on post-hurricane safety tips, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And as the last caller, she always makes the best comments in the sense of being so vocal. And we thank her so much for so willingly sharing her personal perspective. And I think if we are as courageous as she is, perhaps if we're willing to share her perspective, then we can have a much more active and healthy democracy. And as she shared, sometimes the politicians or the administrative power, in this case the UK, is able to get things done more quickly in some instances than we have to wonder, well, why, if they can do that, why can't they do this? If they can do it this fast in that instance, well, why not in this one? We see, for instance, only because it was referenced again today, the whole issue of telemedicine. Not that it wasn't possible, not that there was no willingness to do it necessarily on the part of the physicians. Maybe some were us as patients, well, I want to see the doctor. I want to see the doctor. I don't want to be on the screen. But then we realized that there were challenges, not just with the technology, but how do you charge for that? So little things needed to happen in order for the right codes to be applied so that the people can get paid for what they do. Again, necessity is the mother of invention, but other times, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So as the caller alluded to, are we in an instance where people who have the greatest influence are able to achieve certain things, and sometimes at the expense of others, sometimes not necessarily reflective of what it is that is, the community's majority view. Other times, it's an insensitive, inflammatory thing that is being pushed upon people, whatever that is. It could be a proposal for development. It could be amending legislation. It could be, physical infrastructure, a road being closed or a road being pushed through sensitive areas, or it could be all sorts of things. And the question has to be asked, is it that those who are doing these things are visionary? Or is it that those who are doing these things are just arrogant and disrespectful? Is it that those who are not saying anything are coward or believe, well, what's the point? They could do it anyway. Or is it that they're too busy and not informed? Or is it that we're not sure how to be civil and openly, if you'd allow the word, demonstrate? Don't mean to be, uncivilized or to be doing something in a way that put people and property at risk. But how do you physically indicate, demonstrate, show your disapproval, more than just writing letters to your politicians or calling the talk shows? Maybe as a community group, you organize and you say, well, okay, the politicians should have a public meeting in the town hall about this thing. Whatever that thing is, well, why can't we do that? Or we, as an example, someone, again, earlier said, is there a restriction on political and social gatherings? And if so, why is it? Why are we still having these restrictions on this thing? If we're talking about, getting back to work and having construction sites open and people gathering in bars and restaurants and the like, well, if you can go on a boat, with a number of people, why are there still in this jurisdiction restrictions on social and political gatherings? And if you were to do so, what would the consequence be? And is that still something that we should be, allowed to happen in our society? Is there still on our books, as there were seemingly, a fine if you were, less than 6 feet apart from somebody that you're supposed to be in contact with? Now, will those laws be taken off, those regulations be rescinded? As a populace, are we aware of these things? If they exist, should they be removed? If they, no longer there, should that be reminded so people don't labor on the pretext and then they're precluding themselves from assembly and the like? And then the other thing, some of us may have been, for the first time in their lives, cognizant, become aware that, wait a minute, under public health legislation, you can be forcibly removed from your home or your business, and I'll use the word that was put to me by someone else, incarcerated, forced to give injections. Maybe that's the same in this jurisdiction as it is in other places. If it is, should that be allowed? Again, is the public aware of things? And if they are, what do we do about it? Well, there are some things that are very emotive and inflammatory, and it gets us, if I can use the word, riled up. But are they really the important things? Well, as we learn more about what happened in history, as we sort of project and wonder what may transpire in the future, what are we doing here in the present to ensure there's safety, security, a sense of sanity and civility, and there's a semblance of a society that is appreciative of the values that we have, the sacrifices and services that were rendered in the past, so that we can enjoy the fruits of today. Well, something to think about. Tomorrow is another day. Trust and prayer will all be a part of it. Please, realize that there are some who are still, grieving from not just only the tragic loss of loved ones, but even those that may have passed after an extended illness in recent times. So let's remember them in our prayers, and let's see what we can do to make it that much better in our society. Now, tomorrow is Wednesday, right, Miss Susan? I think it is. She's looked at the calendar and said, it says, Wednesday. No, it's Wednesday. Mr. Art has a fantastic show. Could I invite you to join him once again? For the record, It's an exceptional show. It's the best morning show on the radio anywhere. And certainly, if you're here listening and tuned into him, you're going to benefit greatly. Come back to Talk Today, as we invite you to be a part of it. You're going to focus on a number of things in our community and be able to highlight some of the people who have continued to make immeasurable contributions. And we'll give you a preview of a show that we have coming up the day after. And again, some great things that are happening. Eagerly looking forward to our production on Friday when we get to engage into a gifted mind about some of the things that we should have been considering for a long time. My work continues, but it is with a joy and a graciousness. And sometimes, I don't have to have my gloves on to, give you a little quick one. But sometimes it's even better. Until tomorrow, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.